Deutschland über alles!
Achtung!
Wo ist der?
Спасибо. Вы что, один? Вы один? Лях, а Гитлера я ненавижу. Ой, подождите.
Hello there and welcome back to Gemma Movie Recap. In today's video, we'll be watching The Red Ghost, a war thriller film. There will be spoilers ahead, so sit back and relax. The film begins with a German military truck coming to a halt in a snowy forest near Russian territory. As he strides into the cold, freezing forest, the commander instructed his soldiers to take down the Russian couple's captives. The soldiers are holding the man and woman together, while the man's head is coated with a sack. When the soldiers arrived at a cliff-like location, they asked the couple to perform nasty sensual stuff in exchange for their freedom. However, the Russian couple doesn't really understand them because of the language barrier. Instead, the man pretends to order them not to kill them right then and there. The Germans make fun of this couple until the commander loses patience and decides to kill them.
Deutschland über alles!
Achtung!
Wo ist der?
Suddenly, there is a gunshot that instantly kills the commander. This impressed the Nazi soldiers, who attempted to apprehend the perpetrator. However, the unidentified gunman successfully eliminates the remaining soldiers. The couple thanks him for saving them while recounting what happened, but the shooter does not listen and flees. A group of Russians walks through a snow-covered forest, attempting to reach a specific destination despite the freezing temperatures and carrying a wounded friend. Despite their difficulties, they continue their journey in order to survive the cold weather that prevents them from crossing the forest smoothly. Dead notices a sleeping man who is nearly dead from the cold. Before they can bring him, Dead disarms him and asks his comrade Constantine to verify him. They hold him captive despite the fact that there is no weapon hidden in his jacket, despite the fact that his identity is unknown. If it is summer, the Dead group is waiting in a specific area of the forest, conversing about their lives. They've decided to build a bonfire to keep themselves warm while they chit-chat around it in the meantime. When the sergeant gets upset to Red Ghost, the lieutenant steps in and orders him to shut up. Instead, the wounded Kolya attempts to lighten the mood by telling them a story. Unfortunately, Kolya died shortly after his narration. The group mourns his passing. The German soldiers examine the parameters while attempting to locate and count the number of casualties in their battalion. The three German officials discuss the unknown Red Ghost, who is responsible for their men's deaths. As the two Nazi commanders depart, Braun inquires of one of his men about the infamous Red Ghost. While the lieutenant is sleeping, the prisoner steals his gun. When he wakes him up, the lieutenant immediately demands his gun, and the prisoner bargains for a stick of cigarettes. When the sergeant retrieves his gun, he requests the prisoner's gun and warns him not to repeat the stunt. Dead then calls Constantine and Ravel's attention and warns them to flee as Nazi soldiers approach their makeshift shelter. Dead, Simpleton, Vera, and the lieutenant remained hidden behind a log while Kostya as well as the sergeant surveyed the abandoned house they discovered. When they notice that no one is in the area, Kostya starts calling the attention of those who are waiting. Ravel immediately stops the sergeant from drinking from a prepared beverage on the table. Dead arrives as Ravel and the sergeant struggle with a shot glass containing the alcohol. The sergeant, enraged by Dead's intervention, tackles Ravel on the ground. Dead stops them from fighting further. Dead tells the sergeant that he has saved him because the Nazis poisoned the food on the table. Vera and Simpleton enter the house a few moments later. Vera requests warmer clothing. So the prisoner searches the area. Dead and the lieutenant examine the surroundings of Dead's friend's house. They discover dead bodies in the barn as a result of this. Dead expresses his condolences for these people's deaths. Dead decides to cover these people's remains with the blanket he finds on the ground. At the same time, German troops are riding their military vehicle to the site where their soldiers were killed. Their battalion is on its way to the bathhouse, led by Braun and Klein. Dead, Kostya, Simpleton and the lieutenant will seek for a village in order to retrieve goods that will help them survive. In the meantime, Vera and the sergeant will remain in the house to give the woman time to rest before leaving. Vera, on the other hand, stays near the window to observe their surroundings after they leave. She runs away when she notices German trucks approaching their area. The German soldiers approach the gate near Vera's and the sergeant's house. Klein commands the soldiers as his men secure the perimeters to ensure everyone's safety. Klein's mouth is making unnecessary noises, which alarms Braun and the soldiers waiting outside. Surprisingly, Klein is simply amusing himself by acting around to lighten the mood of his comrades. Klein and Braun enter the house, and Klein proudly tells his commander about the food setup he created to fool their enemies. The food served on the table already has killed 4 Russian soldiers, and more are expected to be killed in the coming days. Klein instructs his men to clear away the food bait from the table. Braun then requests that Klein prepare another food for him to eat. When Dead, Simpleton, Kostya, and the lieutenant see the rushing sergeant, they are on their way to the house. The lieutenant questions the sergeant about his disobedience, and the latter tells him of a German presence inside the house where they stayed. To the lieutenant's chagrin, he punches the sergeant in the face in order to silence him with his illogical reasoning. When one of the German soldiers carries out the piglet on their vehicle, the soldiers celebrate. The soldiers consider to record the event by posing for a photograph. The soldier then sings happily as one of them dances with the pig while holding its feet. Suddenly, a gunshot wound appears, a splash of blood stains the snow, and blood spills into the soldier's face. It is then revealed that Braun shoots the pig as he ruins his soldiers' simple happiness and reminds them that no one plays with food. Braun then turns away as if nothing had happened. Klein asks Braun to relax as he walks inside, but Braun dismisses the advice. Vera is hiding near the table, listening in on their conversation throughout their stay in the house. Dead, Simpleton, Kostya, and the lieutenant, on the other hand, stand back and try to figure out how to fight back. They try to count how many German soldiers are nearby that they must kill in order to save Vera, who is trapped inside the house. Simultaneously, Braun and Klein debate the veracity of the infamous Red Ghost, which targets Nazi soldiers. Braun, however, unexpectedly sits on the chest-like cloth cabinet where Vera is currently hiding. She restrains herself from making any noise in case the Germans discover her presence beneath the woods. Simpleton tells Dead that now the Germans are firing at the bathhouse. Dead informs Simpleton that they must be cunning as the famous Red Ghost in dealing with the Nazis. The German soldier, Gunther, tells Braun that the sauna would be ready within just an hour. Klein tells Braun that going to the sauna is a bad idea, and the latter does not take his advice lightly. Braun commands Klein and Gunther to stand as he chastises them for ignoring his decisions for so long. While Braun lashes out angrily at them, Gunther notices Vera's unnecessary noise. However, he tries to ignore this because Braun will only become enraged if he has done anything uncalled for during his rage. Braun then requests that Gunther leave before he passes out, and instructs Klein to sit with him after proving his point. Dead continues to tell Simpleton about the Red Ghost while waiting for a chance to save Vera. Dead tells Simpleton that the Red Ghost strikes the Germans when they are at their most vulnerable or when their guards are down. Dead then admits that the Nazis burned down their town, and that only he and Constantine survived because they were able to hide in the woods. Simpleton is then amazed by the Red Ghost's abilities, but he is curious where he is and how he survives his battle despite being alone. Meanwhile, the German soldiers stationed in the yard take advantage of the opportunity to rest and talk with their comrades. Gunther then goes into the house where Braun and Klein are staying to deliver the food, but a noise from Vera draws his attention once more. Vera struggles to her location inside of the cabinet as she begins to feel wet, and amniotic fluid begins to pool on her legs. Gunther rushes over to the cabinet and notices the struggling pregnant Vera. Vera begs him to spare her life, and Gunther makes the decision to close the lid and walk out. But Braun notices something odd about Gunther's behavior, so he checks the cabinet and congratulates Gunther on his accomplishment. Braun orders Vera to leave the trunk, interrogates her immediately with Gunther's assistance, and seizes some information during the interview. Vera tries to dupe the Germans with false information, but Klein examines the photographs on the walls. Vera then explains that she simply got lost in the woods, but Gunther tries to help her by explaining that the house owners are her relatives. Braun persuades Vera to reveal what she knows about the Red Ghost in order to save her life, but Vera knows nothing. She begs Braun to not kill her in order to protect her baby, but Klein searches the area and discovers something that will reveal Vera's identity. Braun orders Klein to torture Vera for her dishonesty before leaving. Vera emerges from the door, pale and bloodied. Dead, Simpleton, Ravel, and the lieutenant sneak out to save her as Klein prepares to shoot her. The Russians attempt to kill the sleeping German soldiers in silence. While Vera utters whatnots to Klein in order to postpone her execution, Klein places the gun over Gunther's hand as she translates her litany. He gives him 2 minutes to kill Vera before leaving. Klein and the soldiers who are awake are unable to hear the fighting Russians and Germans because of the music playing in the background. The Russians try to kill the Nazi soldiers quietly so as not to disturb the remaining soldiers in the yard. Someone shoots Gunther in the head just as he is about to pull the trigger. Everyone is alarmed because the unexpected attack saves Vera's life. When the Russians see the Red Ghost throw bombs into the yard to kill the German soldiers, Simpleton rushes to Vera's aid. The lieutenant and sergeant seize this opportunity to assist the Red Ghost in killing the Nazis, and they split up to attack from both sides. Klein and Braun seek refuge in the sauna while the two parties collide. Red Ghost and the Russians eventually defeated the majority of the German troops, leaving only Klein, a few soldiers, and the naked Braun. If anybody shows up, Braun instructed one of his soldiers to survey the area and count the number of enemies. Braun instructs Koch to divert their enemies' attention. He will act as bait and defense while Braun and the other soldier go on offense. Wolf, however, surprised Braun by attacking the soldier from behind, complicated him with whom he would shoot to kill. Wolf successfully disarmed the man and pushed him outside, where he was shot multiple times. Koch begins throwing explosives in the direction of the enemy in order to escape and get to the truck parked nearby, but the sergeant notices him and shoots him immediately. Braun, on the other hand, manages to flee while Klein pretends to be dead. While waiting for the Red Ghost to recover, the Russians eat the food prepared by the Germans. They are all tired and hungry from their encounter, so they all eat quickly to fill their stomachs. The sergeant excuses himself from guarding the area to bring some bread to Kostya, and then decides to leave immediately to continue his meal. However, after tripping over Klein's body, the sergeant kicked him to express his rage. Klein remains motionless in order to keep them from discovering his ruse. The sergeant and lieutenant are debating their next move when they are interrupted by Vera's scream. She informs them that her baby is on its way. Meanwhile, the Nazis try to push the stuck car out of the snow when they see Braun wearing a dress running in their direction. When Steiger notices Braun's appearance, he orders his men to lay down their weapons and compliments Braun on his fashionable attire. Ted acts as a midwife to help Vera give birth. Simpleton helps Vera as she struggles to deliver her baby, encouraging her to imagine different things to distract herself from the pain. The lieutenant and sergeant, on the other hand, amuse themselves while Vera gives birth. Vera gives birth to a healthy baby boy seconds later, and the Red Ghost awakens from his deep slumber. When the Red Ghost wakes up, he immediately grabs his gun and flees. The lieutenant, sergeant, Wolf, and Kostya prepare to fight and decide to follow Red Ghost as he smells Germans approaching from a distance. Steiger directs his Nazis to surround the house and secure the area. The soldiers are now sent out to outwit Red Ghost's allies and kill their comrades during the battle. Steiger instructed several grenade attacks to destroy their enemies as soon as their equipment arrives. This ruined the houses where they were hiding. Vera, the baby, and Simpleton fled, while Ted ordered Kostya to resign from his position as he took his place. Braun then requests soldiers from Steiger in order to reclaim his honor after his failed mission, and Steiger grants his request. Once the soldier moves forward, the lieutenant showers them with bullets, instantly killing them. The bombings continue, but Red Ghost remains hidden and silently targets the perpetrators. He kills them and shoots them in the head. Steiger and his apprentice no longer follow his orders. A massive explosion occurs seconds later after an explosive is thrown in their direction. The war begins as Braun and his men move closer to their opponents. The Russians never give up in their efforts to outwit their numerous Nazi adversaries. Being outnumbered, however, jeopardizes their safety. It is a disadvantage because they must face a battalion. They were injured as a result of gunfire and grenade explosions near their location. Ted saves the sergeant's life by using his own body to catch bullets aimed at him. Kostya has been shot by Braun. The lieutenant is given a bomb. Vera and her baby are saved by Simpleton. Red Ghost exposes himself in hand-to-hand combat with Braun, where he inserts a knife into the rifle. The two fight as they use their guns to injure each other, punch after punch, wound after wound. When Braun attempts to shoot Red Ghost, he quickly stabs him, and Braun collapses bloodied on his bended knees. Klein, on the other hand, shoots Red Ghost from behind, and then someone shoots back. The film concludes with the actor being apprehended by German soldiers and being asked to locate the Red Ghost. The German soldiers are furious with the villagers for defending the partisans, causing the actor to suffer. Red Ghost appears as the actor fights back. He aids the villagers in their overthrow of the German soldiers. As the actor struggles to stand, the villagers assist him. It is then revealed that Kostya is the true Red Ghost. Thank you for watching and please subscribe to help the channel grow.